Imagine waiting years, literally years, for news from a loved one who's away at war.
Right. And then you only get these little fragments.
Yeah, like a really formal postcard, maybe a cryptic radio message.
And then much later, these incredibly personal notes hidden away somehow.
How do you even begin to piece together what actually happened, especially with all the hope and the fear and, well, the propaganda flying around?
It's incredibly difficult. Every piece of information feels loaded.
Well, today we're doing a deep dive into a story that really brings all of this home. It's an extraordinary and, honestly, deeply poignant story.
We're exploring the life of Emmet Gregory Stueve. He was a U.S. Navy pharmacist's mate from Axtell, Kansas during World War II.
And we're going to trace his journey from when he first enlisted right through to the devastating reality of being in a Japanese prisoner of war camp.
And ultimately, his tragic fate aboard one of those so-called hell ships.
Our sources today, they paint a vivid picture, even if it is fragmented sometimes. We've got local newspaper accounts, the Axtell Standard, the Marysville Advocate.
Military records, too, from NAR, the National Archives, and his Find a Grave memorial page.
Plus some really crucial historical context on the key places, Corregidor, Bilibid Prison, and the horrific Arizon Maru disaster.
So our mission here in this deep dive is to really pull out the most important insights from all these sources.
Yeah, not just about Emmet himself, though his story is central.
Right, but also about the profound challenges that POWs and their families faced during the war.
That desperate, agonizing search for any information.
And how communication itself was almost weaponized.
Definitely. And through it all, the human spirit enduring but often heartbreaking.
Okay, let's get into it.
So, Emmet Gregory Stueve, his friends back home called him Buckles, which is a great nickname.
He's born February 26, 1919, in Baileyville, Kansas, the youngest in his family.
And he enlisted in the Navy pretty early, January 15, 1940. What did his initial service look like?
Well, he started with training at Great Lakes Naval Training Station. Pretty standard, but rigorous.
Oh.
That led him quickly to Mare Island Naval Hospital. He got some really valuable experience there, actually cared for Rear Admiral John M. Smealy at one point.
Wow, okay.
From there, he transferred down to San Diego for nurses training.
And then eventually...
Eventually, he was stationed out at the Cavite Naval Yard in the Philippines.
Right, in the Philippines. As a pharmacist's mate, 3rd class, PHM 3C, part of the 16th Naval District's Pharmacy Department.
Exactly.
You know, it's those small details that really ground these stories. Like, we know from his letters, he really loved getting the Axtell Standard, his hometown paper.
Yeah, even when the copies were weeks old by the time they reached him, it was that link back home.
And here's something really interesting, this connection he made at Cavite.
Oh, yeah.
He met a lieutenant commander, Dr. Daniel Boone. Turns out Dr. Boone was the brother of his old high school teacher, Mrs. Elmer Hendricks.
No kidding. Small world, even halfway across the globe.
Seriously, how important do you think those little connections were? You know, for morale, for just staying grounded when you're so far from everything familiar.
Oh, absolutely vital. I mean, completely crucial. These unexpected links, these familiar names or stories in such a foreign place, they're like a psychological anchor.
Right.
They remind guys like Emmet who they were fighting for, where they came from. It gives meaning.
Yeah, it makes sense. It shows how even these, like, seemingly minor personal things can really keep you going under immense pressure.
For sure.
So his early service sounds, well, almost normal considering. But then the war obviously escalated. It reached him in the Philippines.
Right.
What happened with the bombing of the Cavite Navy Yard? That was December 10th, 1941. What did that signal?
That bombing was a brutal wake-up call. It made the war terrifyingly real for Emmet and, well, thousands of others there.
And the Japanese advance was incredibly fast, wasn't it?
Devastatingly fast.
Yeah.
Bataan fell, then Corregidor. That basically ended organized resistance.
Yeah.
He was taken prisoner on May 6, 1942, during the final capitulation of Cavite.
Okay.
Although it's interesting, one of his own notes found later says he was captured earlier, January 2nd, 1942, at a Naval Medical Center in Manila.
Huh. A slight discrepancy there.
Yeah, but either way, the outcome was the same, captivity. The conditions were known to be extremely harsh.
And back home in Axtell, his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Joseph Stueve, the uncertainty must have been just agonizing.
Unbearable.
Yeah.
They hadn't heard a thing from Emmet since December 8th, 1941.
Sure.
That was just days before Cavite was bombed.
Wow. So silence from right before the attack.
Exactly. There were some early rumors, maybe February 42, that he might be a prisoner, but just rumors.
Imagine clinging to that for months on end. When did they finally get official word?
It took an incredibly long time, not until May 21st, 1943.
Wait, 1943?
Yes, over 17 months after he went missing. That's when the official notification came through the International Red Cross, Tokyo via Geneva, confirming he was a POW in the Philippines.
17 months. That's just hard to fathom.
And here's where it gets even more heartbreaking. Emmet kept addressing his later cards to Mr. and Mrs. Joseph Stueve.
Oh, no.
He had no idea. His mother had tragically passed away back on August 15th, 1942, while he was listed as missing.
He never knew.
He never knew. That detail. It's not just sad for his story. It really highlights the cruelty of that situation, the total communication breakdown, the enforced ignorance.
Yeah.
It shows how information blackouts weren't just strategic, they caused immense emotional devastation for families caught in the middle. Communication itself became another casualty.
So after all that silence, that first direct word finally arrives. This typed postal card, August 13th, 1943.
Right. Very formal, under the heading Imperial Japanese Army.
It said he was at headquarters of military prison camps of Philippine Islands, number 3, and that his health was excellent, he was uninjured, well.
Standard phrases, likely dictated or heavily censored.
Yeah. He asked about his life insurance, sent love, told them not to worry. So brief.
And more cards followed. September 43, December 43, August 44. All similarly brief.
The December 43 one noted he was taking care of patients.
And get this, his father, using a magnifying glass, could just make out that the words affected with dysentery had been crossed out.
Wow. So a glimpse of the reality quickly hidden.
Exactly. He also reported his weight, 185 or maybe 195 pounds, sources differ slightly, and requested mail via the Red Cross in Geneva.
And that August 44 card, he mentioned getting a Red Cross box, which was good.
But he added so poignantly that he, as yet, had not heard any word from home.
Oh, still disconnected. It makes you really question, doesn't it? How much of this was genuinely him speaking and how much was just permitted or forced?
That's the core question.
Yeah.
And the Japanese absolutely manipulated these channels. Which brings us to something else the family received.
Right, this wasn't just cards.
No. In March 1944, Joseph Stueve got 2 telegrams. They really show the manipulation in action.
Okay, what were they?
The first was from the FCC's Foreign Broadcast Intelligence Service. Basically, the agency listening in on enemy radio, it warned him that Emmet's name had been mentioned in an enemy broadcast as a prisoner, but it explicitly said these broadcasts were propaganda.
So a heads up, don't necessarily trust this.
Exactly. Then came the second telegram, this one from the Provost Marshal General's office, the military side dealing with POWs.
And this one.
It gave a direct quote from an intercepted shortwave broadcast, supposedly Emmet speaking.
What did it say?
I am well and hope you are the same. I received your package, which was in excellent condition. I am looking forward to seeing you once more. Please don't worry about me as I'm getting along all right. Give my love to the rest of the family. Your loving son. Signed, Emmet Stueve.
So the father gets this message, but he's already been warned it's likely propaganda. What a terrible position to be in.
Absolutely agonizing. He knew, as the papers reported him saying, the Japanese were anything but reliable.
But still, it's news. It's his son's name.
Exactly. He clung to that hope. He noted he'd only sent one package via the Gripsholm exchange ship before Christmas. So the broadcast mentioning your package, was it that specific one, or just a generic propaganda line?
Ambiguous. Designed to be, maybe?
Very likely. It shows how even suspect information could offer some comfort, but it was also definitely psychological warfare, using hope as a weapon.
A really stark example of how information itself becomes part of the battlefield.
Precisely.
But then something truly extraordinary happened. August 1945.
Yes, this is after Emmet's death had actually been confirmed, which makes it even more intense.
His father receives 3 handwritten messages from the Navy Bureau of Personnel.
The cover letter said they were apparently prepared by your son while a prisoner of war, and they were found by the Army on Corregidor after it was liberated.
Wow. Just, wow. Handwritten. After all the censored cards and propaganda. From a historian's view, how rare is something like this?
Incredibly rare and incredibly significant. These offered an unfiltered personal window, something completely different from the official messages or the enemy broadcasts.
A real voice, finally.
Exactly. And the mystery of how they got to Corregidor, he was never stationed there. His father thought maybe the Japanese moved records there as things got desperate.
Which adds another layer to it.
It does. These writings are that counter-narrative. the personal cost behind the history headlines.
Okay, let's break down these three messages. What was the first one?
One was called a relay message. It was written in pencil, interestingly, on the back of a landing certificate of residence form that had a picture of a Chinese boy on it.
Using whatever paper they could find.
Absolutely. And this message sounded very similar to that radio broadcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, requesting notification to Mr. and Mrs. Joseph Stueve saying he was, well, got a package. Looking forward to seeing you.
So almost like a draft for the propaganda, or maybe what the Japanese allowed him to write for relay.
It certainly suggests a level of control over even these seemingly personal notes intended for relay.
Okay, what about the second one?
This one is just heartbreaking. A personal letter to Dad, written in ink this time, on the back of a Bureau of Customs document. Again, scarcity of paper.
What did it say?
Dear Dad, I am well and happy to write this message. I received your package and 2 letters near the date of my birthday. He mentions getting a letter from his brother Leo, too.
Okay, so some mail did get through to him eventually.
It seems so, at least by this point. He continues. You mentioned in your letters that you would be able to send me a package every 2 months. If that is true, please send concentrated foods, some saccharin, soap, and tooth powder.
Just basic necessities, things we take for granted.
Exactly. And then comes the line that just hits you. How is Mother getting along? You and Leo never mentioned her in your letters. I hope she is well. I think of her constantly and always remember you and her in my prayers and at Mass.
Oh, man. Still asking about his mother. Still unaware.
Completely unaware. It's such a gut-wrenching insight into that gulf of information, that terrible silence imposed by the war.
Unbelievable. Okay, and the third document.
The third was a personal statement. Pencil on lined tablet paper. This felt more like a direct account, less of a message to be relayed.
What did he write here?
He recounted his capture date as January 10th, 1942, at that Naval Medical Center in Manila. Mentioned being in the Cavite bombing on December 10th, 41.
So his own account of the start of it all.
Right. He described prison life as very monotonous and trying. Health issues. He mentioned having dengue fever once and diarrhea once.
Understated, probably.
Almost certainly. But he explicitly stated the food situation has been the most intolerable. Rice was the main dish, often the only dish.
Just relentless deprivation.
Yet, despite all that, he writes, and this is powerful, his morale was as high now as it ever was and will no doubt become better and better as time goes on and the termination of hostilities draws near.
Holding on to hope even then.
Right to the end. There's also a strange X marked at the very end of the document. No explanation.
Huh. These accounts. They're exactly the kind of insight we look for in these deep dives. So raw, so different from the censored stuff.
Worlds apart. They give us that rare glimpse into his inner world, the needs, the hope, the painful ignorance of what was happening back home.
But as harrowing as that struggle for communication was, Emmet's story, sadly, takes an even darker turn.
Yes. The final chapter is incredibly grim, a stark reminder of the sheer brutality of the Pacific War.
Tell us about the Heiress on Nauru.
Okay, so Emmet had been held at Bilibid prison camp in Manila.
Bilibid. Conditions there.
Compared to some other Japanese camps, it was sometimes described as relatively well, but that's a very grim relative. Food rations were still terribly inadequate, dropping to maybe 100, 200 grams a day by early 45. Conditions were harsh. Survival was the only goal.
Not a place anyone would want to be.
Definitely not. So on October 11, 1944, Emmet and about 1,800 other American POWs were loaded onto a Japanese freighter, the Heiress on Nauru.
A freighter. Not a transport ship marked as carrying POW.
No markings whatsoever.
Yeah.
They were apparently headed for Japan. The ship anchored near an island for 6 days, very tense, then returned to Manila briefly before heading north in a convoy.
And then?
Then came the catastrophe. October 24, 1944, the Heiress on Nauru was torpedoed and sunk
By
an American submarine, likely the USS Shark or USS Snook. They had no way of knowing POWs were aboard.
Oh, God. Friendly fire, essentially. Where did this happen?
Somewhere off Shunan, the eastern coast of China, or possibly in the Bashi Channel between Taiwan and Luzon.
The sinking itself. I mean, can you describe what happened to the men inside?
It's horrific. The torpedo hits didn't kill everyone instantly. Most of the POWs were apparently able to get out of the holds, escape the sinking ship.
So they were in the water?
Yes, but the Japanese guards, they abandoned the ship themselves, and then, unforgivably, they refused to rescue any of the Allied survivors struggling in the water, just left them.
That's monstrous. Beyond the tragedy itself, what does that act tell us about the conditions, the mentality?
It's a chilling insight into the complete dehumanization of prisoners by the Japanese military at that point. A total disregard for life, for any rules of war. Those rules were just gone.
And the scale of this loss.
It's staggering. It's one of the largest single losses of American life in a maritime disaster in U.S. history. Bigger than the USS Indianapolis sinking, bigger even than the American losses on the Titanic. Out of about 1,781 Allied POWs on the Arizen Maru, only 9 survived.
9 out of almost 1,800.
9. 5 made it to the Chinese coast somehow. 4 others were recaptured by the Japanese, and 1 of those died shortly after.
It's almost unimaginable. A hidden atrocity, really.
Absolutely. The enemy's disregard for life, combined with the tragic fog of war from our own side, leading to this massacre of men already enduring captivity.
And Emmet Gregory Stueve.
He was 25 years old. He was not among those 9 survivors.
Gone. Along with, you mentioned, another man from his home county.
Yes. Paul Payton, also from Marshall County, Kansas, was lost on the Arizen Maru as well. 2 local men, gone in the same horrific incident.
So the final confirmation must have eventually reached his father.
It did. Joseph Stueve was officially notified on June 21st, 1945. Emmet's status was changed from POW to deceased.
The formal end to that long, agonizing wait.
Yeah. A solemn confirmation of what they likely feared for months.
And the community back home.
They held a memorial service for Emmet. Tuesday morning, July 3, 1945, at St. Michael's Church in Axtell. The local American Legion post attended. A large crowd from the community. It clearly hit the town hard.
Shared loss.
Definitely. And later that year, November 26, 1945, Joseph Stueve received the Purple Heart, awarded posthumously to Emmet, a final, tangible honor.
And his memory today.
Emmet's legacy is commemorated by cenotaph that's a memorial marker when the body isn't present at Sacred Heart Cemetery in Baileyville, Kansas, his birthplace.
He was the youngest, survived by his father.
6 brothers and 2 sisters, a large family deeply affected.
When you step back and look at this whole story, Emmet's life is such a powerful lens on the personal cost of that global conflict, isn't it?
Absolutely. It wraps up so much. The anxiety of the families, the sheer brutality of captivity, the twisted nature of wartime communication.
And ultimately the sacrifice, like countless others.
It really underscores the fragility of hope in those times and the incredible strength people needed just to face circumstances we can barely imagine.
So today we've taken this deep dive into Emmet Gregory Stueve's remarkable and ultimately heartbreaking story.
A young man whose spirit, it really did shine through. In those censored cards, those secret notes.
Even while facing the absolute darkest realities of war and ending up in one of history's deadliest maritime disasters.
His story really forces you, I think, to confront the different kinds of truth that exist during wartime.
Yeah, you have the official statements, carefully worded.
Then the enemy's propaganda, designed to deceive.
And then these deeply personal messages scribbled in secret on scraps of paper.
Right, so as you reflect on Emmet's life, maybe consider how those different layers of information shaped everyone involved. The people waiting at home, the person in captivity. How does it affect their understanding, their resilience?
And maybe think about that fundamental human need to communicate, to express love, to hold on to hope. How does that persist even when you're surrounded by the absolute worst circumstances?
And what can that persistence tell us about our own need for connection even today in a very different world?